Try and speak now to Roger Mallinson. Roger is the last living survivor of the deepest sea rescue in history. Roger, thank you very much indeed for joining us this afternoon. Maybe you'd be kind enough to remind us, this was all happening off Cork, wasn't it, in Southern Ireland?
This is 50 years ago. We were out in the Atlantic at 1,575 feet down, burying a telephone cable across the Atlantic.
Yes. And what happened? What happened then?
And we'd been down working all night, and when we came up normally. We put the pinger on the job, on the cable where we'd buried it, so that when we came down tomorrow, you've got a marker to start where you left off from yesterday.
Yes.
So it's a thing called a pinger, the sonic beacon. And we put that on the cable, and then we got permission to ascend, and we went up.
Yeah.
And it took us 3/4 of an hour to go up because of the depth. But we noticed that when we left bottom, the tide was running easterly, and so we, instead of going straight up, we went up at an angle, but we were travelling east. So we were 3/4 of an hour up east of the pinger.
Yeah.
And so when we hit the surface,
yes,
we weren't on the surface very many seconds before the diver went and stuck the tow line into the hatch instead of connecting to the sub, he connected it to the hatch, and he pulled the hatch off. We took 2.5 tons of water on, and immediately left the surface. And about 3 minutes later, the tow line that was attached broke because it just couldn't stand the massive stress, and we went crashing down to the bottom. We hit bottom at 40 miles an hour.
Oh my gosh.
And it took us 26 seconds to go down.
Wow.
It's taken us 3/4 of an hour to come up.
And Roger,
and
this is so
we
fast,
really
and
hit bottom.
Roger, this is so fast, obviously, and with such enormous impact. Do you recall? Were you able to recall after all these years what you were thinking at that time? We're showing photographs now of you actually being rescued.
Well, we were absolutely terrified that the sub would implode as we hit bottom.
Yes.
And it didn't. And it just said so much for Pisces how well made it was. There was nothing wrong with Pisces that let us down. It was somebody that did something wrong.
Yes.
And they connected a tow line. Instead of connecting the tow line to the sub, they connected the tow line to the hatch.
And so you hit at 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It took 26 seconds for that to happen. And then what do you remember happening
and then
next?
Once we were on the bottom, we settled down to find out what we had got, what oxygen we had, what life support we had, what food we had, how much battery power we still had, which we'd been working all night. So we'd used a lot of our battery power, and that was really our lowest thing, I think, was battery power. So you had nothing to scrub the CO2 out of the atmosphere. We had some oxygen. We didn't have a lot, but we had some. And actually, just before we dived, I got off the sub and I stole a bottle of oxygen and got it on board because of the way I'd been treated by somebody when I'd asked about a safety factor. And instead of answering the safety factor, I got a mouthful of swear words. And I thought, well, I'm not having that, so I'm going to do something about it. So I got off the sub and I went across the ladder onto the ship, which was a very dangerous thing to do because there was 100-mile-an-hour wind blowing and 90-foot seas. Which, trying to get across the ladder with nothing to hold on to. And then I went down into the oxygen stores and I got an oxygen bottle and didn't write anything down. I just took it and got it back and over the rail and across this ladder and into the sub all on my own. How I did it, I don't know.
No. And if you hadn't...
I wouldn't be here now.
If you hadn't, you wouldn't be here now. That stolen bottle of oxygen, that saved your life. Tell me about the rescue and being brought up to the surface. How did all of that happen? It was the deepest rescue in history and remains that.
Yeah.
So what happened? Who rescued you?
They sent over to San Diego,
Yeah.
and they sent over to oh God, I've gone blank again.
I don't know, rescue
in
workers,
Canada.
or
Canada, where they built the subs
Uh-huh.
in Canada.
yes.
All on the Canadian, all on the not Atlantic, on the.
Roger, listen, it's an amazing story. You've lived to
Yeah.
tell the tale. How many years ago was it that happened?
It's 50 years ago.
My gosh, really, I can't tell you how honoured we are to hear you tell that amazing story. You must be feeling an enormous amount of empathy and sympathy for those on board Titanic, on board
Well, I am, but the thing that's annoying me is that how much time seems to have been wasted on doing things like interviews instead of getting these people found and getting them brought up.
Well, thank you very much indeed for your... Thank you for telling the story on the programme. We enormously appreciate it.